We left off Samach Beis Amid Beis on the very bottom. Okay. Omer Abaye, Reb Eliezer ben Yaakov, Reb Meir, Rebbe, Reb Meir Kulus Firle Od Bololam. Abaye says Reb Eliezer ben Yaakov, Reb, as the Gemara said, Rebbe is Reb Yudah Nossi, and Reb Meir all of the opinion that a person could transact something and affect something which doesn't yet exist. So Reb Eliezer ben Yaakov, we had said that let's say something hadn't grown to a third of its growth, a grain. So before it grows a third of its growth, what is it? It's not classified as grain, and a person tithes, does an act of tithing to affect it when it will grow and be detached. So the Gemara says, according to Reb Eliezer ben Yaakov, it's considered a valid tithing when it will be detached. Although when he did the act of tithing, the grain didn't yet exist. It was either shachas or was just some vegetation. Rabbi Eliezer ben Yaakov is of the opinion his action is an effective action. Although when he did the act of tithing, what he was going to affect didn't yet exist as grain. So we see Rabbi Eliezer ben Yaakov is of the opinion a person could affect something which doesn't yet exist. Rebbe concurs with this, but we'll see. Each one's a little different. Rebbe, someone says, Rabbi Eliezer ben Yaakov, Damor, Rabbi Eliezer ben Yaakov, we just mentioned. Rebbe, what's Rebbe? The Tanya. Lo saskir eved al adonov. So it's an interesting, there's a question over here, it's a law in the Torah. You're not permitted to commit a Canaanite slave to his master. There's a question what exactly the Torah is speaking about. So Rebbe interprets this, that if a person purchases a slave, yeah, we'll see what he says, and he says to the slave, when I purchase you, you will be freed from now, which is a little difficult. Yeah? He says to the slave, when I will purchase you from the master that owns you now, you will be emancipated from now. And he gives him the get shechra. And he gives him the writ of emancipation. I mean, it definitely cannot be retroactive, right? If you want to say, when I will purchase you, you will be emancipated at that moment, it's fine. But to say to be emancipated retroactively from now, regarding a woman, you could say it. When I will give you the money in 30 days, you should be married to me retroactively from now, where it's a conditional marriage. I give you a ring now. On the condition I give you money in 30 days, right? So if I give you money in 30 days, the marriage is retroactive from the moment I gave you the ring at this moment. If I don't give you the money in 30 days, then the act of the ring, giving the ring means nothing. Okay? That's retroactive. Or the Gemara, we discussed earlier, that even according to Rabbi Yochanan, let's say the grain grew, it's a third. It's classified as grain, but it's still growing. And you say, I'm tithing what is growing when I will detach it. So the Gemara said, according to Rabbi Yochanan, since it's within his ability to detach it at the time that he does the act of tithing, that's not considered dav shelo b'olam, right? Of course, the effect cannot be while it's still growing, but the act is considered an act of tithing when it will be detached, right? That was Rabbi Yochanan. It's not das. It has nothing with das. You can't emancipate a slave that's not your slave. So it has nothing with das. Factually, you can only emancipate your own slave. So when he said mi'achshov over here, that's how I'm differentiating. Regarding marriage, it's within your ability to marry him now, except is a condition. So it could be retroactive. Here, we can't say the emancipation of a slave is retroactive. You can only emancipate the slave that's your slave. So you could say, when I will buy you, you will be emancipated. That will be the case of dav shelo b'olam. But he didn't say that. He says, when I will purchase you, you'll be emancipated from now. So it doesn't mean from now. We'll see, Tosfos discusses this.
What's the point of the emancipation? Does he go into the other person's domain?
No, mitzvah, he becomes a Jew. That means the moment he purchases him, that means he's going to be emancipated. That means he cannot treat him as a slave. He's not his slave. He's not his chattel. Evet Kanani. Canaanite slave. Okay, Rebbe Omer, what's the case speaking about? So the Torah says, if you had Belokeach Eved Al Manas L'Shachro, it was the Torah speaking about a person purchases a Canaanite slave on the condition that he will emancipate him when he will purchase him. Hechidam, what exactly did he say to the slave? Omer Avnam Yitzchak on the Kosev Lei, he had written the Shtar Shichrur, the writ of emancipation. He says, L'shekochecho Harei atzmo konui loch me'achshov. He said to him, when I will purchase you, you'll be acquired to yourself from now. Meaning, you'll be your own person from now. So firstly, so what happens if factually he gives him this type of writ of emancipation, then he retains him as a slave. He's in violation of this law. Lo sazgir eved al donav. You're not permitted to allow the slave to be retained by his master, right? Because he emancipated him. So Rashi says, who's in violation of this? Is it the master or is it Bezdin by not enforcing the emancipation? So Rashi says over here, Asor leBezdin, shlo yazgiru lebalav tishtabid bo. This is a commandment to the Bezdin that they're not permitted to allow the owner to enslave him because factually he freed him. So he says, right? He says, when I will purchase you, at this moment he can't free him. You can only emancipate the slave that belongs to the master. So he's affecting something which we said before, does not be other, right? It's not within his grasp, because it's up to the owner to agree to sell or not to agree to sell. Nevertheless, what does Rebbe say? That it's considered an effective emancipation. The new owner, the one who hasn't yet purchased him.
So what if it's writing, something in the future? Can you say because I'm writing it, I can say at that point that I'm writing?
No. He wrote a document, he gave the document to the slave before he purchased him.
Only on giving that.
No, he said, no, he wrote in when I will buy you, the Kosovo, he wrote in the document, when I will buy you, you will be emancipated with this document from now. We'll see Tosus. So evidently not. Wait. Evidently not. Because if that is the case, what do you have to write from now? Right? According to... Well, Tosus asked the question. No. What does he have to write from now? Factually, it can't be retroactive. It cannot. He doesn't owe the slave. Right? Is it It's not retroactive. He gives him the document now. He gives him the get shichra now, before he purchases him. But yet he writes. We have a case. We have a case coming up. The next Mishnah, we have the case in Ksubas. A man gives a ring to a non-Jewish woman. She hasn't converted yet. She says, "When you will convert, I will marry you with this ring." Right? So, according to Rameir, he's of the opinion when she converts, the marriage is effective. Right? That's Rameir's position. Although at this moment she's not marriageable because she's not Jewish, or let's say he's not Jewish. He gives a ring to a Jewish woman, says, "When I will convert, you should be my wife." According to Rameir, it's a valid marriage. Doesn't make a difference. Rameir's of the opinion that it's irrelevant. What the Gemara said before that was going to the Chachamim. But according to Rameir, the effect doesn't yet exist. Although you have control over it, you could affect something which you have no control over. Because the presumption is they will come through. This is a similar case. I mean, it's up to the seller to sell to the buyer. What would be if the seller chooses not to sell to the...
There's only one variable. It's not when I buy you, I will issue. He's already effectively, by giving him the slave, he's already
No,
put that in
No. He hasn't yet purchased the slave.
He hasn't yet.
He gave the document to the slave, and he says, you will be emancipated retroactively from now.
Part B is already being fulfilled. He just hasn't bought the slave.
Which is a crucial
The
piece
other
of the...
case is you have both Part A and Part B not fulfilled, right?
Which
marrying
case?
Marrying a woman,
And she's not Jewish yet.
she's not Jewish yet. She can't.
So all that's missing, she has to convert. It's like I like purchasing the slave. No, she received the ring. She has the ring. He gave her the object of value.
She's not in the class where she can marry.
I know. So here also, you're not in the position to same thing. You're not in a position to emancipate. Only a master can emancipate a slave. You're not a master yet. It has to be your chattel to emancipate him.
There's no possibility that the slave could be emancipated from even if the sale takes place.
Exactly.
Because the slave is still a slave.
Not only that, the slave's not his slave.
I understand, but he's a slave. The only time, in terms of the time sequence, when the man buys the slave, that is the earliest point that that slave can be emancipated.
Correct.
He cannot be emancipated now.
Because
Under any circumstance.
no, if it would be a slave, it could emancipate him now. If it would be a slave, it could.
It's not.
So the point is, it's not his. You can't emancipate something that's not yours.
Yeah, no,
It's the slave that let's say he says, when I will buy you, you will be emancipated. Is that a problem? That's good. That's not a,
That's good.
but he says it should be retroactive.
No, but that's impossible.
It's impossible. Why is it impossible? Because you can't emancipate a slave that's not your slave. That's the point.
No, it's not. No, I would say it's different.
What would you say?
Because the slave is still a slave. He's got.
But why is he still? He's still a slave even when if it would be his slave. I'm emancipating you. Let's say he would give him, take this dog, you'll be emancipated in 30 days. In 30 days. Is he emancipated in 30 days? Even though when he received the document, he was a slave. Same thing. But yet, it's effective in 30 days. If he gives a slave the writ of emancipation, it should be effective in 30 days. He's emancipated in 30 days. Even though when he's receiving it, he's a slave. It's irrelevant when he receives his slave. But factually, because I could affect you now, because you're my slave. Right? Here, it's not a slave. He can't affect his status as slave until you're the master. That is the point. How can you say from now? Retro. So Tosis discusses that. It's an impossibility. Right. Okay. It's not comparable. We'll see, Tosis. No. No, because there the woman she could marry him at this moment. No. That's not what he's. No. Good.
Why is this timing so
1 second.
Why is timing so sensitive? What are we looking to accomplish if it's earlier or later?
Because what you did is a meaningless act. Seemingly, the act you did is a meaningless act. You can't emancipate. You can't free a slave before he's your chattel, before he's your slave.
Correct.
So, but he says you can. Rebbe says you could give such a get shichur. You could give the document, although when you gave the document, it was meaningless, right? Because you couldn't affect his life. But yet, when you purchase him, then that document will be an effective document.
But even if you gave him, even according to Rebbe, what is this person, what is this slave able to do differently?
He's a Jew once. Once it becomes effective,
But the time lapsed already. I mean,
what's time lapse? He has the document.
Couldn't get married anyway. Couldn't convert anyway.
Again, okay. Let's. There's a concept which we'll see Tosis, which is difficult. Now, what's the halacha? The different types of instruments of transfer. We have kinyan kesef. You have kinyan shtar, and you have, let's say, kinyan chalipin. Kesef is I give you something. Let's say, harei mekdeshesli. I give you money. You'll be my wife in 30 days. She agrees. Let's say she spends the money. We had the Gemara before. Rav Shmuel says, Al pisha nesachol amos. Although, when the 30-day period comes, if the money doesn't exist, what's the halacha? Mekudeshes. Why? Because She took the money for the kiddushin, and she owes him the money. There's a debt here, right? Why did I give you the money? So even though the money was spent, but the fact is the money was given for kiddushin. So she owes him the money. She has to be agreeable to him because she owes him the money. She spent the money. Therefore, she's married. Even though the money doesn't. It would be a debt. It would be a debt unless you agree to marry me. Correct? If I give you money and you spend it, you owe me money in 30 days from now. He's not giving her a gift. He's giving the money on the condition that she agrees to marry him. Okay, and you took it for that reason. So that means the money, you're indebted to marry me in 30 days. Okay, so there's an indebtedness because of the money that you took from me. So whether the money exists or doesn't exist, because of that indebtedness, right, because there's an indebtedness. What about a man who would give a woman a shtar? He marries her with a document, and he says, Harev Mukdeshli, with this document in 30 days, now the document is lost or destroyed. And when the 30-day period comes, the document doesn't exist. Is she married? She's not married. Because the instrument which brings about the effect has to exist at the time when it's going to be effective. So if the document is burnt or lost or destroyed, the marriage is not a marriage.
So what is
Wait, let me get the facts down. Let's get the facts down. She's Edim Kodeshes, okay? It's called Kolsa Kinyana. If the kinyan is not in existence at the time that it's meant to take effect, the effect is not an effect. Now, let's say the Gemara speaks about a case where Rabbi Yochanan speaks about, what about a kinyan suda? What's a kinyan suda? That's kinyan chalipin. A person, we rule the halacha is that when a person wants to purchase something, so the buyer has to give a garment to the seller, a garment. The seller takes the garment, and when he acquires the garment, he transfers what the garment's being given for. That's called the barter. That's what chalipin. When you acquire the garment, now you transfer me for what the garment is being given. Correct? That's chalipin. The custom is, the Gemara says in the Dorim, that after you take the garment, the seller of the item gives back the garment to the purchaser. Correct? You following? The way we do it when we appoint the person to be your agent to sell you chametz. The person gives you his garment, whatever his object. The person takes the object, and based on acquiring that, he appoints you to be his agent. What happens after he appoints you to be agent? Then he gives back to you. So there, it's not a problem because there the agency is immediately. You're established. I'm your agent. I'm appointing you to be my agent now. What about if I do a kinyan chalipin that it should take effect in 30 days? Right? Let's say you give me your pen for your animal. Right? I have a pen. You have an animal. I give you the pen and say, when I give you the pen, transfer your animal to me, but I want the transfer to take place in 30 days. And you give me back the pen immediately, or the garment immediately. So the Gemara says in Bava Metzia, it's not valid. Why? Because when 30 days comes, there's no trace of that kinyan. The instrument of transfer is not in place when the 30-day period comes. So it's called kolsa kinyano. The kinyan, there's no representation of that act of transfer, therefore the transfer is not a transfer. Okay? That's what the Gemara says. So if you transfer something, let's say an animal, it should take effect in 30 days. The Gemara says the animal has to be in the domain of the acquirer for it to be acquired. It does not mean necessarily that, but as long as it's within the domain, something that he's able to acquire it, that's sufficient. But let's say it would be in a public domain. A public domain is not a location of acquisition, then the transfer is not a transfer. Because there's no remnant or trace of that act, of the instrument of transfer. Okay? So let's say a person would marry the woman with a document. 30 days comes, the document's destroyed, and the document has to be intact in 30 days for the marriage to take place in 30 days. Because what's affecting the marriage? That original document. So the document has to be in place when it takes effect. That's the halacha. So Tosha says something which you have to understand. So he says, let's say I say, give a writ of emancipation to the Eved, to the slave, and I say, I'm freeing you when I will purchase you, that it should be retroactive from now, which is not possible, because you cannot free only a slave that you own. He said, me'achshav. What happens now when I purchase you, the document doesn't exist? Doesn't exist. Is it a valid, is the slave freed? If he, so Tosa says, if he did not say the word me'achshav, he says, when I will purchase you, you will be emancipated with this document, and before he purchases him, the document is burnt or destroyed, he's not freed. But if he writes me'achshav, then the document is effective, although the document doesn't exist at the time when the emancipation is meant to take place.
There's got to be a witness for the...
No. We have witnesses who witnessed the document. They read the document originally. The witness who could testify to the information that is stated in the document that was given to the slave. But before the purchase took place, the document was burnt. Okay? So Tosa says, because the word me'achshav was inserted in the document, it's a valid emancipation. Wait, don't ask side questions. No. I understand that right now. But even according to Reb Meir, that's the problem. Even according to Reb Meir, you can't have kol sekinyono. The kinyon has to be in place at the time that it takes effect. Here we're saying, even if the document is not in place, but because he added the word me'achshav, therefore the document doesn't have to be there. Meaning, if he didn't insert the word me'achshav, if the document should be destroyed, the slave is not freed, is not emancipated. But because he had written in the document, I'm emancipating you from the moment you receive the document, although the emancipation cannot be effective from the moment you received it, because it can't be retroactive, because when he gave it to him, he wasn't yet his slave. But because he wrote the word me'achshav, the document, although when it's effective, it doesn't exist, the slave is emancipated. That's what Tosa says. No, marriage was never a problem.
No, but if the man says, I will give you this star of marriage after you divorce your husband, me'achshav.
According to Reb Meir, because he wrote the word me'achshav,
It would be good.
Just like by the slave. Exactly, like by the slave. So, until Tosis over here, would say, logically, there's a halacha in effect, to affect something, that the instrument that affects it, to be affected, has to exist at the moment that it is effective. Right? You marry a woman with a document. If the document is destroyed before the 30-day period comes, she's not married. Because through what is she being married? You have to have a representation of the instrument that brings about the effect. Right? That's the concept. But we see, no, that's not the concept. Because if that's the case, writing me'achshav, although you wrote, you want it to be retroactive, although it cannot be retroactive, that gives it a certain value that even if it doesn't exist at the time that it's being effective, it's effective.
We're dealing with the question that document was lost or destroyed.
Correct?
I would ask first the question, even if the document didn't get lost, how is it effective?
No, that's not a problem. That's not a problem. Because factually, I did buy you, and I am your master. No. So, so the word retroactive means nothing. So if it can be retroactive, it means I'm freeing you. But fact, is he saying he's freeing the slave? He's saying he's freeing the slave.
If the freedom occurred from the point of purchase, how would there be no problem?
But let's say he said it should be retroactive. And it cannot be retroactive. That means it's null and void, the document. I wouldn't say it's null and void.
We have that concept that if somebody says two things, and one of the things is right and one of the things is wrong, you don't continue the thing that's wrong. You still accept the thing that's right.
Right.
You separate them.
No, that's, yeah.
If that's what we're talking about over here, okay, I can accept that. Delete the word...
Me'achshav. Right, good. No problem. No, that's not a problem. That's not the problem. But Rameir, but that's not the problem in the Gemara. That's not the problem with Tosa is dealing with. Rebbe says the document you had to add that word me'achshav to the document. What does Rebbe have to say he added the word me'achshav? Let him say he gave him the document, when I will purchase you, I will emancipate you. And he has the document. Why does Rameir say he had to add the word me'achshav? Retroactive. That's what Tosas is contending with over here. Seems to me it's essential that it should be effective. So Tosas, why is it essential? What do I need it for? If the document exists, what do I need it for? Tosas, you're right, I don't need it. But since normally, how do you emancipate a slave? It's always with a document. And it's not uncommon the document should go lost or be destroyed. Therefore, to guarantee that the emancipation will be effective, you add the word me'achshav. That's the reason why that's part of the text. Because if you would not add that word me'achshav, if the document should be destroyed, then the slave will not be emancipated.
Well, that's fine. But once you get to the case that we're dealing with here, where the man is still a slave in the document.
Yeah, exactly. So therefore, it truthfully, it's not retroactive. Cannot be retroactive. But nevertheless, the value of putting that word in, it gives validity to the document to be effective, even if the document doesn't exist at the time of the emancipation. That's what Tosa says.
But Rabbi,
So there's two things. One is the word achshav enables the transaction to stand if the document is lost.
Exactly.
So I get that. That's one halacha, let's say, or one rule. But still you've dealt with this question of at the time the document was given.
Doesn't mean that. So, cannot be, but exactly. You know what the person is saying this. I'm just a little bit of a digression. You know, the Gemara says, you know, why do we say korbanos before Psuki December? Right? Some people say more, some people say less, some people don't say it at all. But why do people say korbanos? So Gemara says or what musaf? We say musaf, we say the psukim of the particular korban musaf. Why? So the Gemara says, based on the pasuk, it says, we will pay with our lips. We bring the bulls with our lips. Parshas chatos. The one who says the portion of chatos is if you brought the chatos, whatever it may be. Okay? So the Chafetz Chaim writes, besides understanding what the psukim mean and understanding the particular ritual, to have value, you have to also have a sense of yearning that you wish that you could have brought it yourself, but it's unfortunate because we don't have the Beis HaMikdash. Therefore, this is the best I could do. It's the best I could do. And there's a question, if you don't have that yearning and that sense of helplessness, whether the words have any value. Okay? Basically, the Ma'ashav is saying now, if I could emancipate you now, I would. Factually, I can't because I'm not your master. So therefore, the word Me'achshav only means to say, factually, if I could do it now, I would do it retroactive. And if I would do retroactive, even if the document should be destroyed, it would not in any way interfere with the effectiveness of the emancipation. But factually, I can't. Why can't I? Because I'm not your master. So what is the value of writing the Me'achshav that if, theoretically, the document should be destroyed, nevertheless, the emancipation is valid.
Rabbi,
That's the concept.
When you write me'achshav, you have to have witness.
The documents on the
No, but you have to have a witness that notices that me'achshav is written in the document.
the document, the Adam signed, two witnesses sign on that document after the document's written. The sofer draws up the document. It says the text is written, as you say. Two witnesses now sign on it. And they say, we attest to the fact this is the intent of the future buyer.
Okay, so you don't need the star because...
No, you can't be emancipated. A man divorces a woman, correct? Does he have to give it a document? You write a get, the person writes a get, never gives the get to the wife. Is she divorced?
No.
You could have it signed by 1,000 witnesses. It means nothing.
Right.
After it assumes the status of a get, the husband gives it to the wife. So only once it's considered a writ of emancipation, the master gives it to the slave to free him whenever he wants to, chooses to free him. Same idea.
Rabbi, we also saw earlier that a marriage without the star is not a marriage. It's not a valid marriage.
No, you can marry a woman with money in presence of witnesses.
Yes, but if there was a star and the star disappears in the condition.
When did it disappear? After he married her?
No, the
time of the marriage.
What does that mean? Did he give it to her or didn't he give it to her? If he gave it to her, she's married. If he didn't give it to her, then he never married her. We're speaking about now, he gave her the document to take effect in 30 days,
Yes.
and then the document doesn't exist when the 30 day comes.
Yes, so then she's not married.
She's not married.
Okay, but the same should be true with the money. If she spends the money...
So that's what I'm explaining, because the money, he only gave her the money for one purpose, marriage. So if she spends the money, she's indebted to marry him because she took his money.
Oh, but she's only indebted to marry him, but not to reimburse the money.
No, if he doesn't marry, then she has to reimburse the money.
Yes, if she doesn't...
That's so because there's a link. Now there's a link to the original money. Even if the money doesn't exist, the marriage is effective. But a document, there's no indebtedness. If the document's there, she's married. It's not there, she's not married. Okay? Factually, it doesn't work retroactive. It cannot work retroactive. No, the Rebbe. Riz Rebbe. Inserting that word, me'achshev, only is to establish intent. If I could, I would want it. And therefore, even if the document doesn't exist, that's sufficient to affect it that the emancipation is an emancipation.
I understand, but this whole thing about the slave...
It's not a retroactive. It's not
you're
retroactive.
almost saying
That even though you give, meaning, if this man afterwards should want to retain the slave as a slave, when he gave this kind of document, he's in Bezdin, he's in violation of this love. You're not permitted to retain the slave to that master because the emancipation is effective. Because Rebbe's opinion, although when he gave the document, he wasn't in control of the situation. It was only to take effect at a later time when he purchased, which is not control of that moment. Nevertheless, it's an effective emancipation.
But you're still saying that the way to understand what Roman is saying is that it's retroactive to the time of the giving of the document.
No, it's not retroactive. No, not the emancipation. The act, that the act is considered an act of emancipation. To be valid later.
Oh, so the emancipation is not having it...
No,
retroactive to the time of the giving of the document.
no. That's impossible.
It happens whenever the sale takes place.
Correct. But even though he did not have control at the moment he gave the document, right? Same concept. That's the concept. He can't change his mind. Cannot change it. Can't change it. It's similar. Okay, we'll continue tomorrow.